Hey guys, it's Bree, and welcome back to my channel. I know that it's been a little while since I last uploaded a video. I was having some computer issues, and I wanted to try a new video format this time around. Let me know if you guys like this type of video editing, or if you prefer the old style where it's just a full screen of the Speedpaint with the background music. Part of the reason that I took so long to get back into art was because I was having some trouble with some inspiration. I really didn't know what I wanted to draw, and nothing really sounded exciting to draw either. So I went back to my extreme comfort zone and dug out a bunch of my old sketchbooks to see if there was anything that I wanted to redraw. I like doing this because I find that I have a lot of good ideas that I didn't have the skill to draw how I wanted to at the time. But I have the skills now to get closer to what I was envisioning. So I was going through these sketchbooks and I found one from 2020 where I did some Witchtober drawings. I had found a really cool prompt list that was made by a ginger witch on Instagram, and she had all these witch ideas that were a lot of fun to draw. I didn't finish at the time, but I think I did around like 17 days worth of finished pieces, plus some extra sketches that I didn't get around to inking. I do like the drawings that I did back then, but if I'm being honest, they weren't that well thought out. I just kind of went in with absolutely no planning and did the first thing that came to mind. So I thought that'd be fun to go and redraw these sketches and see just how much I've managed to improve over these past 3 years or so. For day one, the prompt was to draw a Gothic witch, and for some reason my mind went to like the Gothic era instead of like a Gothic fashion sense. I don't know what I was thinking, but I'll go ahead and put up the original drawing on the screen. And as you can see, I really didn't think this one through much at all. I didn't have a cohesive sense of time and place that is painfully obvious when you look at the background of this piece. She's kind of standing there in front of a blank wall with a normal looking window on it with some books and tools on the counter behind her. Like, this background has no personality to it, and if you were to remove the character from it, there would be no sense of this being tied to the Gothic era. Honestly, the current character looks out of place, and it would make much more sense for this background to belong to a different character. So one of the goals that I had for this piece was to have a more cohesive aesthetic and make sure that the character looked like she belonged in the environment that I put her in. So this time around, I hopped onto Pinterest and looked up a bunch of reference of Gothic style clothing and hairstyles and architecture, some really cool witchy tools like potion bottles and books. And I wanted her to have a crow familiar, so I gathered some reference for them as well. I gathered a lot of reference for each category because I wanted to make sure that I wasn't just copying the photos I had found. I wanted to pull different pieces from each reference image and kind of synthesize them together into something that was different from the original. This really showed up more in the outfit design. I had a lot of fun designing her dress and pulled a ton of reference to work from. I ended up designing like 3 different dresses that I was having trouble choosing between. I ended up texting my best friend and asked for her opinion on which one she liked the best. And even in the end, I pulled from the 2 final dresses. I used the design of one and part of the color scheme from another, and I thought it looked really cute, and I liked the way that it turned out. Once I had my character design mostly done and had a general idea of the vibe that I wanted to go for, I started thumbnailing. Now, this isn't something that I haven't really done in the past, but it's something that I'm trying to do more often because I'm one of those people who can't visualize things in my head. I have to get my ideas down on paper and then workshop them from there, or else it can get really boring as far as my composition is concerned. And I like being able to get a bunch of different ideas as quickly as possible so I can think through all the potential compositions I can do. For this one, I did a lot of thumbnails. Initially, I did 9 and tried to make them as different as possible from one another. Then I picked up the one that I thought was the most effective based on what my goals for the piece was and did an additional 8 variations of that one specifically. Even when I started my final piece, I chose 2 thumbnails and combined the foreground of one and the background of the other because I liked how she was standing in the first one, but I really wanted her to like be in a library, which I had sketched in the second one. And I've already mentioned it once or twice before, but composition is something that I really have a tendency to struggle with, so I wanted to make sure that I was really paying attention to it this time around. I really wanted to have a distinct sense of foreground, middle ground, and background in this piece, and have the character be really grounded into the environment. I kind of managed to accomplish that, but I definitely think I could have done a lot better. I think it would have been better if she wasn't in the foreground so much and was in the middle ground instead. And it would have helped if I had her interacting with her environment more, and to add some extra elements in the foreground to give a better sense of depth. I still liked how it turned out, though. I'll just keep that in mind for any future pieces that I'm working on. I do really like having the arch windows in the background. I think they're so pretty, and they're so iconic to Gothic architecture that it helps keep the environment in the proper time period. And I like having the moon shining through the trees and the windows to give a secondary light source. Oh, also, I went and saw My Fair Lady around this time. So they had this gorgeous library set that was 2 stories tall that they would roll on and off the stage. And I was like, I absolutely have to include this in my illustration. Uh, but another composition tip that I have is to have different elements and lines within your piece that lead you back to your focal point. The focal point of this piece is obviously the woman with the crows and the crystal ball that she's looking into. So I had the arch window and the shine on the upstairs cabinet lead the eye back to the woman. And I also used some implied lines to guide the viewer through as well. People tend to look like the same place that someone else is looking. So by having the woman and the crows all gazing at the crystal ball, I can keep the viewer looking at the focal point and not accidentally lead them off the side of the page. The final composition thing that I kept in mind while working was to play with the high and low value areas. When you're looking at a piece, your eyes are going to be drawn to the areas of the highest contrast while skipping over the areas of the lowest contrast. This can be like a contrast between values, color, or saturation, or any other things. For this specific one, I tried to focus on contrasted values, which is how light and dark an area is. In trying to keep your eye towards the characters in the crystal ball, I made sure that they were better lit with a higher range of values versus the bookshelf, which has a similar color and value and a lot of detail that is subdued on the first glance. You can still see what's there, it's just that your eye isn't drawn to it at first as compared to the crystal ball and the woman gazing into it. Overall, I really like how this piece turned out. I think that it's a massive improvement over the original, and I like that I was able to have a more cohesive aesthetic and really strengthen the composition, even if I do think it could have been tweaked a bit. I think that's all that I have to say about this, so thank you for watching. I do have plans to continue on with more of these witch drawings, and other drawings as well, so please feel free to subscribe so you don't miss out when I upload the next one. Bye guys!